Hey everybody, it's the Week in the Tackle podcast, a podcast where we look back at the previous week in soccer and or football. Don't at us, it's a British-American podcast. We do them both and we're happy about it. And we tackle the things that we thought were interesting. I'm Tom Rennie. Brian Dunseth, broadcaster extraordinaire and former top player, is with me. How are you, Dunny? All right?
I'm fantastic, Rennie. I had a good weekend. I did Utah Royals against Angel City on Friday night. I did Real Salt Lake against Sporting Kansas City Saturday night. And then Sunday, I took Mike and my middle boy down to RSL training, and it was an overall fantastic weekend. And then Cinco de Mayo out here in the United States. Got together with some friends, imbibed, and woke up with a searing headache yesterday morning. So there's that.
I'm pleased for you. I had a similar experience. I went out on Friday night for the first time in ages. My friend's birthday. I had a wonderful time. Drinking bourbon in his front room like a proper teenager, having a great time. But I did the Arsenal game Saturday morning, and I started to lose my voice. Sometimes I lose my voice, but usually, I'm very good in a hangover. They don't really affect me that much, as you know, from our Washington, D.C. experience, where
True.
one minute I was hugging a toilet bowl in a Citizen M hotel, and the next, literally hour later, we were interviewing Wayne Rooney. I can recover.
Such a
But end of
factual
the game,
statement. Yeah.
that's a factual statement.
Yes.
Declan Rice scored the third goal, and I was like, oh, my voice is, that's not right. That feels right. Lost the voice Saturday. It was gone on Sunday, so cancelled on my booking Sunday. Just about got it together again for Monday. Turns out, as I speak to you right now, I have hand, foot, and mouth, which is a super gross, fever, spot-covered horror disease. My voice is back, though. If I last the full 40 minutes today, we'll find out, because my son's nursery is essentially a petri dish for the new diseases of humanity. And in the end, the next COVID won't come from like a bat in China or a lab or something or other. It'll come from your kid's fucking nursery. Sorry, Tim.
The factual statement.
It's a gross place. Anyway, look, I was thinking about you this week because I watched the Crystal Palace game. I was meant to be there, but I've got hand, foot, and mouth, so I couldn't go, which is a shame because I went to the game last year that was diabolical, where at least they scored that equaliser. But this one would have been very funny, and I wanted to call you during the game, so sadly we couldn't do that. But I was thinking about you because, of course, David Moyes, the Moyesiah, our pal, is stepping down or not being renewed, however you look at it at the end of this season. Ten Hag, I'd be stunned if he was still there next season. And I was sort of thinking, Dunny, is this our fault? Like mine and your fault? Because ever since we started working together, our teams seem to be merging into the same club. Like maybe we could start calling them West Hamchester United, because it feels like the football's the same, the misery is the same, and up until like Monday, the manager felt like it was the same.
Well, it is kind of the origination of our relationship going back to COVID in 2020. And we did kind of with SiriusXM the generated FIFA draft. And then we calculated and put in our players that we had chosen through that draft. And I think I was up 2-0 and I ended up losing 3-2 between Manchester United and West Ham in the final after having previously beat you. And Tim Horsey and Pete Corey were giggling behind the scenes uncontrollably as they knew the demise of my Manchester United, as well as my bravado and swaggy, was dissipating in front of their very eyes, which then turned into this, which then turned into friendly banter, which turned into me taking unnecessary bullets on Talk Sport in the middle of a match, and me referencing you over and over during different broadcasts and shows as well, that we've had a blast teasing each other through various ways, right? But yeah, man, this sucks, right? This sucks. At least, your European campaign went a little bit longer. You lost to one of the best teams in Europe right now, best teams in the world in terms of what Bayer Leverkusen's doing. I think it was like 59 games now, undefeated. While I chose to fall asleep on the couch yesterday. I turned the game on. I was watching it. And based on what I saw in the first 3 minutes of the game, sorry, Tim, decided to close my eyes and take a nap.
No.
And when I woke up, I swear to God, it was more entertaining for me to close my eyes and take a nap on the couch than shuffle through another 90 minutes of what that looked like. So I woke up around the 42nd minute, 2-0, decided to close my eyes again. And I woke up right in time for the second half kicking off. Yeah, just painful.
Well, I mean, look,
Painful.
the football has been a bit tough for Man United, and the style has not been great, the execution has not been great. But is there not something to be said that Erik Ten Hag post game said that I love
Huh?
that voice so much. Since you've pointed it out to me, it's really ruined Erik Ten Hag for me.
So,
I hadn't
but
spotted that before. It's
did you
so pronounced.
did Tim figure out what I did on counterattack the other day
What'd you
about the
do?
new? So we have a new song that leads into every Erik Ten Hag presser. I'm sitting
Hmm.
there in the break, and Erik Ten Hag probably went, "Huh?" I think it was like 14 times the other day in his presser, and it reminded me of Family Guy, where he goes, dude, unbelievable. And I think he goes, and one more. It was amazing. So I was like, am I the only one that hears Family Guy now when Erik Ten Hag is doing his presser?
Not
And
anymore. You were before this conversation and counterattack the other day, but not
yeah,
anymore.
so he's got like this blend of like, when I hear Erik Ten Hag, now I hear a little bit of Peter Griffin in there from Family Guy. So, I mean, you work it out. But again, stuck, just burned inside of my brain now that I can't unhear it.
But doesn't he have a bit of a point in that? I think one of the things he said post game in between the Huz was the players didn't execute the plan, or words to that effect. They didn't do
Yeah.
what I told them to do. And on top of that, Anana, maybe he was his pick, but he couldn't have foreseen, that he couldn't catch a cold. He couldn't catch hand, foot, and mouth in my son's nursery, Andre Anana. Um, you've got a centre half in Johnny Evans, who with the best row in the world, he knows he shouldn't be there. And
He came to go he came to go on a trip to go play Wrexham.
yeah,
I
he
mean,
came to help out in the summer for a
and
couple of
next thing you
games.
know, he's 1v1 with Erling Haaland both home and away against Man City. Poor guy didn't deserve that. And
And
he's
then
been actually really good.
and then poor old Casemiro, who, looks like he's carrying a trailer around. And everyone's talking about him today, and I'll ask you to follow up on him in a second. But in terms of Erik Ten Hag, it's the prime minister thing.
Mm.
What brings down prime ministers and presidents? The famous line over here is events, dear boy, events. You cannot plan for these things. And he would have
Mm.
not planned to go into that game with that back line. And Palace in good
Of
form,
course
it
not.
was just
Yeah.
one of those things, no? It's not his fault.
Yeah, no. Again, absolutely. There's factors, there's mitigating factors in all of these conversations, and we could put them in the same category as what we've seen this season at times with Liverpool, certainly with Newcastle, certainly with Chelsea. Which I think when I would like to start peeling back the onion even deeper. Then, if we're going to say that there are players that are unavailable because of injury, that's fine, right? Things happen. It's a long, long season. Virtually every player at some point is teetering on the edge of some issue that they're dealing with, whether it's known or not known. Guys are just extremely tight. Guys are fatigued. Guys' hammies are, ankle. Bruno popping up with a cast because he's broken something that we weren't aware of. Guys, you know, Harry Maguire going down in training, the day before the trip down to Palace. All these things are real, right? These are legit. And in an ideal world, the back four would have been Varane and Lissandro Martinez in front of
Yeah.
Onana. Luke Shaw's over on that left-hand side, and then probably Delo. And then in the midfield, Kobe Mainu doesn't get the shine that he's had this season. If everybody's healthy, you can go on and on throughout the team. But why? I've been saying this to you since December. Why are they struggling with this many injuries? What in the world is happening? Whether you talk about dietary, you're talking about strength and conditioning, you're talking about the medical team, you're talking about the focus off the field, or are we just simply talking about the training module that's been created by Erik Ten Hag and his staff? I mean, what is happening? And again, this is not the only team that's dealing with it. Newcastle was dealing with it. Chelsea was dealing with it. Usually we say it's maybe, Champions League, Europa League, the travel, the midweek, all of those things. You're going to see a glut of injuries because you're managing that. That's why we always talk about depth of squad. We talk about, you've got to spend if you're in Europe. Until when Erik Ten Hag comes out publicly and says, we know what the issue is. Well,
Mm.
then what is the issue? Do you not have faith in the people that you're working with that are helping take care of these athletes? Or have we taken a deep dive into what you're doing every single day? Because I'll tell you, there's guys that will do an hour and 30 minutes done, like from warm up to, finishing drills, hour and 30 minutes. There's other guys, stop, start, blow the whistle, stand around for 2 minutes, explaining yourself. Next thing you know, it's a 2 hour training session, and you're just standing around for, you speed it up, you slow it down to a screeching halt, speed it up, slow it down to a screeching halt. So I just, at the end of the day, all of those things are part of the equation and the part of the conversation.
Mm.
We can talk about what's happening behind the scenes. You could talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. You could talk about Harry Maguire. You could talk about Jadon Sancho. You could talk about Marcus Rashford. You could talk about rules and regulations, the Mason Greenwood situation. There's a lot of things that have happened, transpire. Obviously, Ineos coming in and the constant turnover. Who's in the office? Who's now being replaced and asked to leave the office? Who are now these voices that are coming in? Hey, there's trash on the floor. This is disgusting. All of, like there's so many stories around this team, but what it comes down to is at the end of the day, something we don't know.
Mm.
And it's the same thing we've talked about with Bowley, Igbali, and Clear Lake at Chelsea. Who does Ineos, in terms of their decision pyramid now, who has the ultimate say? Is it individual or is it collective? Because at the end of the day, the biggest thing that's working against Erik ten Hag is he is not their guy. And
Yeah.
if you're not their guy, that opens up the potential possibility for them to find their guy. And the question is their guy available right now that is better than what Erik ten Hag has? Does he deserve a or a third season? Does he deserve the opportunity because of everything that happened? I would absolutely say yes. But it's kind of getting to that point where you're looking around, you're saying, if that guy's available, we need to start executing. And in the meantime, is it worth Erik ten Hag in terms of body language, culture, mindset? You've got 2 games left and you've got a cup final. Is it worth giving him the run? And we've seen people be ruthless with regards to Daniel Levy and Jose Mourinho and pulling the ripcord before an FA Cup final before.
Didn't work though for Daniel Levy. They had absolutely no chance with Ryan Mason in his first ever game in charge, as opposed to a serial winner who's shown he can win finals as a massive underdog. That's still I'd love
Well,
to see
what
that
about
final
Steve
play out.
McLaren? I mean, if you can make the move, and let's go theoretical really quick,
He's
right?
the one who taught Ten Hag to speak Dutch, I think.
The freaky deaky Dutch of Steve McLaren, still the best interview as a.
The best.
This is how you say green.
How you say is the best bit of it. How you say great. The best bit. How you say football? Yes.
It's football. Yes, this is how you say.
Aren't you from Lancashire?
Yeah. Why are you speaking English with a Dutch accent? But no, listen. So here's the complexity of the conversation, right? The risk, if anybody within the hierarchy of Ineos now that's walking through the door does not want Erik ten Hag, can you risk giving him the final and potentially winning an FA Cup and then still thinking about, well, now how do we fire him? Like, oh, we can't fire him now. And so you're ultimately stuck with him heading in the next. I just think it's a very.
If they come out, they can fire him. They can fire him.
You can fire him in a heartbeat, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
if they win the cup or not, they can fire him.
The Rolodex, yeah, and we think. I mean, look at Louis van Gaal in the past and all of these things. So yeah, I just think it's a really fascinating subject. The conversation, we're looking at body language, we're looking at games, we're looking at inspiration, all of these things kind of, I don't know if they're playing in favor of Erik ten Hag at this stage of the season.
I mean, on that, I was doing the commentary of that FA Cup final at Wembley when Jesse Lingard, God bless him, scored that late winner for Man U and Louis van Gaal. And we did the post-match. I do press conference. My colleagues go mix zone. And then hour and a half after the final, maybe less, waiting in the remnants of the queue to get to Wembley Station to go home. And we all get the text, Van Gaal's been sacked. Get back to Wembley. See if you can grab him. Because everybody knew, and everyone, had been speaking about the rumors of it. But, if they can sack Louis van Gaal, they can sack Erik ten Hag. Listen, did I get them names right? I felt wrong. Anyway, that felt right. 2 other quick bits on the game I wanted to ask you, and then segue into the David Moyes piece. The Jamie Carragher line about Casemiro. I wanted to see what you thought about that. Now, for those that didn't see this, lots of our listeners in America would have seen the NBC coverage, or they were listening to Sirius XM. If you were in the UK and you were watching it, you would have watched the Sky Sports coverage. And Jamie Carragher said post-match, of course, a big name these days in America for getting super fucking drunk in the Yellow Wall. Sorry, Tim. And then doing an interview like everyone's drunk uncle at every wedding you've ever been to, trying to speak to the father of the bride. She's so beautiful, Jerry. She's so beautiful. You must be so proud. Jaden, come over here, Jaden. You must be so proud. I probably wouldn't have let him on TV, but hey, it was entertaining. And we're talking about it a week later. So there you go. I don't know. Anyway, Carragher said, and it was quite a good line, I thought, because he spoke about himself, don't let the game leave you. And he was saying that what Casemiro needs to do now is play 3 further games and say to himself, I cannot play at the top level anymore. His tackle on Elise was so embarrassing. I thought he played for Bromley. Never mind Manchester United. It doesn't make any sense what he tried to do there. To sort of jumped to the right of what was happening. It was wild. But he basically said, top level career is over. But then he adds, go to MLS or go to Saudi. Can you play in MLS if you run like you're carrying a caravan on your back?
Listen, Casemiro's career has been extraordinary. He's won it all, right? And Father Time is undefeated. And in a position that he's being asked to play is unfair to him. I got to give him credit. Listen, when you're a defensive midfielder, instinctually, your first step is always forward. That's the biggest challenge for when you step into a center back's role, because your first step is actually backwards, right? As a center back, you can anticipate going forward, but you recognize you're the last man. The challenge for him to adapt, and he can do it. He's smart enough. He was a world-class player, absolutely world-class player. But it's a different ask at this stage of his career. And everything that's going sideways right now defensively for Manchester United, and the amount of shots they're conceding and the game model and the game plan, it's got to be horrific for guys like Casemiro and Johnny Evans at this stage of their career to be asked to play a certain way and just be chasing shadows, just absolutely chasing shadows. So whatever his future holds, listen, I think he's one of many that probably Manchester United are identifying with regards to, okay, we need to move this player out on that type of wages. We need to see whatever we can get for him, and then we'll move on from there. But we're not the directors of the man's career. Whatever he chooses, if he wants Saudi money, go get it. If you want to come to MLS, come play. If you want to go down back to Brazil like Thiago Silva and he's going to Fluminense, then so be it. I mean, there's still plenty of options for him to play. But it seems like it's obvious that his time's coming at an end at Manchester United. And at times, I think he's been really, really good. At times, I think it's shown that the intensity of that level is difficult to maintain over the course of the season, and what the ask is physically for that kind of output. But yeah, I mean, for Jamie Carragher, I don't I think it comes off as disrespectful. I don't necessarily view it that way. But I understand the logic and the natural evolution of the conversation of, if you're not in the Premier League, what's next?
Yeah.
For a guy like Casemiro, I would say he would have significant options, because people will still look at him. It's not only about the playing, it's about, I would say, the experience that he could bring into any team. And that sometimes is really important.
Yeah, and I do think, go to MLS or go to Saudi has become a shorthand we used to have for drop down the leagues, right? Go to the championship. There's a famous quote from a movie. I forget the movie now, but the quote always sticks with me, which is, he's the kind of person that would rather be top of the second than bottom of the first. And that used to be a common thing that people did. Listen, I want to move us on in a way, but also not, because the phrase "be careful what you wish for" has been doing my head in for the last few weeks. Another shorthand. Everyone who says it, I know is saying it because, you're in broadcast, there's a shorthand. All I'm saying is any replacement for any manager, especially one who's done well, is a risk. So that's basically what they're saying. But saying careful what you wish for quite rightly irks fans. It irks me because, I want my team to play well and win. And the whole debate about, you can either have play well or win. That's all you're allowed to have. You can't have them both. That's the goal of the exercise, right? So it winds me up. Oh, would you rather play terrible football and be champions, or play amazing football and get relegated? I think of it as like a metro line, a tube line. It's not extreme east and extreme west. There are many stations that we can stop at along these lines, that we can go to. So that winds me up, that conversation. People were saying that about Crystal Palace not too long ago. Be careful what you wish for. Were they right to wish for a manager who, could organise a defence and play some good football and get the best out of the players that he's got? And is that something that maybe Man United can wish for? And that'll bring us to the West Ham conversation as well. I mean, talk
Yeah.
to me a bit about careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I get it. I still go back to, the original move from Roy Hodgson and asking Patrick Vieira to come in and whatever. I mean, you're more insightful to that situation behind the scenes than probably a lot of us, but it obviously didn't work. And so going back to Roy Hodgson, and I just remember it was the away game at Brighton where they got smashed, and he was just it was almost like he was taking it all in one last time, and just that shot of him, hands in the pocket, standing in the middle of the field, and legendary status, right? Legendary human being, and just getting absolutely throttled by the supporters. And at that time, Crystal Palace was, I think, from a fan base's perspective, looking at Roy Hodgson and saying, "Why can't we play like that?
Mm.
Why can't we play like that?" Well, guess what? You can play like that because right now you've got a manager that is ticking all the boxes. By the way, how good was Chris Richards yesterday? Is Anthony still in his back pocket?
Who?
Dealt well. Yeah, exactly. Dealt well with Rasmus Højlund. Had that pass to Mateta that got his goal as well, even though Mateta did all the work, but it was still a smart little pass in the midfield.
Mm.
Yeah, they're fun to watch again. They're fun to watch. Elise, Eze, Mateta up top. They got bite, they got grit, they got determination. Like even on set pieces, like when Mateta was just like shoving Rasmus Højlund, and Højlund was like, I don't want a piece of this. I don't want to even fight back right now. Fun run of form. What is it like? 5 now wins in like 8 games.
Yeah.
I I told you guys last week. I don't see Manchester United getting any points. Like if they're getting smashed by Palace, what's it going to look like at home against Arsenal and Newcastle?
Yeah. Good luck with that.
And it's what Brighton for the final game of the season. So yeah, they're a fun team to watch, man. And this is what I think with regards to Manchester United and Erik ten Hag and now your squad, West Ham and David Moyes. It I was having this conversation this week with somebody with Big Ange Postecoglou, right? First 9 games of the season, top of the table, absolutely flying, doing it without Harry Kane, inspirational leader, checking all the boxes, and earned so much equity. But 11 wins since I think it was the start of like October 28th. There's only been 11 wins, the least of all of the big clubs. So obviously, the wheels start falling off. But I'll tell you what, they're really good, they're really bad, but they're always interesting. That's what it comes down with Spurs. And there's an identifiable style. There's a reckless abandon that's come back to haunt them. And yet there's still a culture setting inspirational manager, whether he's a fraud or he's not a fraud, whatever the conversation is, he's got this team changing in a different direction. So the
Yeah.
summer transfer window is going to be absolutely huge for Tottenham. But in the meantime, like what would Big Ange look like with this West Ham squad? What would Big Ange look like with Manchester United squad? I know we do that thing all the time, but the reality is what we want is we want to pass the eyeball test. We want to be inspired by watching our team play and be like, yeah, like sorry, Tim, like man, we're pinging the ball around today. We're playing well today. And I think that's part of what we're originally talking about with Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we?
But I do think as well that with that conversation, you can play as badly as you want and be as ugly as you want as long as you win. And when you stop winning, as David Moyes has stopped winning, as Erik ten Hag has stopped winning, as Mourinho at times stops winning, as Sean Dyche didn't win for 3 months. When you play that ugly and you don't win, everything looks wrong. And people can lose faith very quickly because there's no inspiration, as you mentioned, on the field. Listen, I'll do a little David Moyes bit in a second because it has now finally, it's my last ever David Moyes soliloquy. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. But a final question, on the broader theme of it all things must pass, right? Like when it comes to managers, we've got one that's leaving after 4.5 years, another one, Klopp, leaving after, what is it, 8.5? I forget the number now, but long time. Guardiola still hasn't gone. Please just go. But one day he'll go. The average shelf life of a manager in the Premier League, I think, is 1 year and 3 months. In the Football League, it recently got to under a year for a manager's average time there. I mean, that's not enough. But I mean, can it ever go well at the end? Because I'm reading a lot at the moment about the David Moyes departure, and some people are like, West Ham have handled this terribly. And you think to yourself, well, it's contract work. His contract was coming to an end. And obviously they were going to talk to other people because they can't not have a manager in 6 weeks'
Yeah.
time. So I don't really see how you can classily end this sort of relationship. And, in the end, it's always messy, right?
Yeah, it's just a weird one for me because with David Moyes, what he's done is he's brought you guys a trophy, right? I've got no skin in the game. This is just me watching. It's
Yeah.
a Conference League trophy. It's still a
You've
trophy.
suffered through me talking about it, though, mate. You're the
Yeah,
biggest West
no,
Ham fan,
I,
non-fan in the world. You've suffered
it's
through this with me.
yeah, I absolutely have. I've got nothing to show for it, but I've suffered through it with you. Um, but I mean, I go back to okay, you're in the final year of your deal. You're in Europe. You are going to be a mid-table team with hopes of qualifying cleanly for Europe once again.
Yeah.
You've just sold Declan Rice for 100 million. You've brought in Ward-Prowse, Edson Alvarez. You've tried to create a trifecta of players that could potentially replace the individual, even though David Moyes did say 2 days ago that the biggest loss is Declan Rice.
Yeah, that was not great. That really
That's
wasn't great.
the bold strategy. You get
Mm.
through the January transfer window and you've let two attacking players go and you haven't strengthened at all. And then the wheels just slowly start to fall off. You take a couple flat tires, a rim pops, and next thing you know, David Moyes is enlightening us to let us know that it's on his terms if he resigns, which if that's true, then why not just resign?
Mm.
But on the flip side, then you've got this guy in Portugal who's winning the league with Sporting Lisbon and he's popping over to do an interview. You've got this situation where it's coming out publicly that the technical director is not allowed by the first team or being anywhere near David Moyes and his staff because he's effectively looking for someone to replace him. And that becomes a distraction. It's just not the way you want it to end.
Mm.
But you're right. It very rarely ends the correct way. Even with Klopp, effectively calling time on his own has seen significant hiccups over the last 2 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't
If
know
they're
how it,
resigning or they're retiring, it can be clean. But I mean, Moyes evidently wasn't going to retire. He'll get another job either at
yeah.
UEFA or in management. I mean, if he's not Nottingham Forest manager by December, I'll eat the hat I'm virtually not wearing. Right? He's gonna get another job like
Yeah.
that. But to my information, he had the offer in October and he didn't sign it for whatever reason. I think it was length of contract in my view, but it's probably something else. And then they won 4 games in 20. And he pushed for Calvin Phillips, who was an utter disaster.
Mm.
The January transfer window was a total disaster. The tactics in home games, and people talk about entertainment. I've always been of the opinion that I have been frustrated over the last 4.5 years that every time I've gone to watch my team play, I've gone to watch the other team play against my team,
Mm.
which has been quite annoying. But if you win, it's all right. It's okay. I'm happy if you win. But when you can't beat Palace at home, Fulham at home, Bournemouth at home, Burnley at home, you've got a problem. I
Uh,
think you've got a problem.
I'm so glad you said the Bournemouth at home game because Micah, my middle boy, one of his teammates, their family went over to England and caught 3 games, and they did back-to-back games. They did Stamford Bridge and Chelsea. I think it was like a 6-goal shootout, and then they went to the Bowl of Disappointment. I was joking with them. I was like, "Be careful, Bowl of Disappointment." They're like, "Oh, dude, we're gonna go see West Ham, Bournemouth." And so I asked them when they got back. I was like, "How was it?" And they're like, the most exciting thing was our children learned a couple new slang words from the Bournemouth fans because that was the most entertaining thing that happened during that 0-0 match.
And I mean, this is it.
Yeah.
I mean, here's my soliloquy on David Moyes, right? Probably the final time I'll talk about him for a long, long time. It's great that he is gone
Mm.
and he's gone before the Luton game because in the macro, as you know, this has been the best time I have ever had as a West Ham United supporter. And I think a lot of people, certainly of my generation, of my sort of age, but also even older people that have been through a lot with West Ham, this has been peak and pinnacle and brilliant.
Mm.
Obviously, Prague was absolutely life-affirmingly amazing. It was better than sex. It was better than my wedding. It was better than everything. It was the number one greatest moment I've ever experienced in my entire life. It was so, so great. And even if they win another trophy in my lifetime, it won't be as good as that because I never thought I'd see it. So it was amazing. And, he gets so much credit for winning that competition. And people who disparage it, A, I think are stupid, and B, look how hard Aston Villa are finding it. Look how hard Tottenham found it. Look how hard all the clubs that have gone into this competition and thinking, oh, it's a nothing competition. You didn't win it. You know, West Ham did win it. David Moyes did win it. He navigated that final beautifully and won it in the perfect way with a last kick of the game goal. And look, the first 2 seasons were amazing. And again, he lifted the club to his standards. West Ham had no standards with Manuel Pellegrini and his grandma haircut. They were going through the trapdoor playing awfully. He thought he could make a big club by just saying it. And it's a lot more than that. David Moyes saved the club twice, rebuilt the team. Those first 2 years, the Jesse Lingard run, the way he fired them to 6th, which got them into Europe that second season, where they should have won the Europa League, got knocked out in the semi-final and still finished 7th and maybe could have finished higher if they weren't in the Europa League. They had a small squad and struggled at the end. That whole time was amazing. They played good football, entertaining football, thrilling football. It was so good to watch. The third season was terrible in the league, really, really bad, but it came with that incredible Conference League run and the moment, you know, that great title winning moment, the Conference League winning moment. So you obviously get kudos for that, and no one remembers the league season if you have a moment like that. This season has been sort of meh. They were 6th over Christmas after a great run, but it felt like it's gone on too long. I think to not seemingly seem like you lost Declan Rice for 6 months was a huge achievement. He's obviously a great coach. He's obviously someone that doing his plan can deliver it well, but it just feels like it's been a long time. And in the end, people want something different. I think people want to see their team touch the ball. I think you can see there's not much progression left with David Moyes' planning of the way they attack the game. And it just felt like it was coming to its natural end. The team needs massive reinvestment. The club needs a bit of a re-energizing. And if you're playing in front of 62,500, you know, part of that move was to qualify for Europe, which they did. But it's also to stay there. The foundation stones have been laid by David Moyes. And I think that I'm so pleased he's gone before Saturday because it has been amazing. He deserves a lot of credit for it, but I don't want to see it anymore. It's like, to me, your first girlfriend, right? Everyone loves their first girlfriend. Everyone will always have that special place in their heart for their first girlfriend. However, she went to university. It's over. And when it's over, the best thing to do is handshakes all round and move on. And I think that the fond memories David Moyes has left us all with are so fond. They're so fond and so great. You know, being at Sevilla at home when they won that game, the Lyon away victory, obviously Prague, which I've mentioned, some of the league wins against Liverpool and Tottenham and Arsenal, even this year, the Arsenal away, so great. But all things must pass. And that's where we are. And, you know, it's Christmas cards. It's the occasional text. It's stalking each other's Instagram. But I think it's time to move on. So there we are. Right. That's the last time I mentioned David Moyes. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll think of something else now. What are my thoughts on Julian Lopetegui? Look forward to that next series. Listen, one or two other bits, Danny, before we're out of time today. We'll get to heroes and villains. Just give us a word on the Lionel Messi performance, which everyone has been talking about this week. 5 assists, though one was a 3-yard pass for someone to score from 30 yards. But sure, you can have it. And scoring as well. Danny Higginbottom said to me on Tuesday's football show, he's still the best player in the world. What say you?
I mean, it's again, there's always going to be a narrative and a conversation surrounding the league that he's playing in. And I understand that. I'm not naive to that conversation. But the reality is that Lionel Messi at 36 years of age is doing everything that Lionel Messi did at 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 years of age. He's just doing it with another team. It's the same performances that he had with Barcelona. It's the same performances where he had, 25 goals, 25 assists during his time at PSG. It's the same performances that won him the Copa America, that won him the World Cup, that turned Vardiol inside out against Croatia and spun him to the end line and cut that ball back for the finish. The pass, I would just, I would, it's such a, it's, how do I even verbalize this? The ball that he hits to Luis Suarez, where Suarez rounds the goalkeeper and finishes. And that first touch and that angle is that finish is extraordinary. How quick he gets it off his feet and how he finishes it. But the touch with the left foot, the he gets his head up, he's driving, and he hits a curling ball with the outside of his left foot. So the ball's actually curling into the run of Luis Suarez and into the keeper. But if you watch it in slow mo, there's just something so beautiful about this, and the aesthetic of this is incredible. They've watered down the pitch, and as he hits this ball, you can just see the water skipping, like the ball skipping on the surface and the water kind of like spraying as it's going through. But the weight of the pass, the angle, it is like I don't know how his mind works. If it's like a Bagger Vance type situation where like the field just kind of like it just fluctuates in this slow motion timeline that he sees it, but it's just incredible. Again, everyone will talk about the quality of the opponent. Everyone will talk about the league. Everyone will talk about, you know, the lack of physicality or whatever, the respect shown. I'm fine. It's not worth it for me to even try to get into that conversation. But what he does in real time is extraordinary. It really is extraordinary. The way he sees the game, his ability, his athleticism, his speed, his center of balance. I mean, he's making two moves to hit a ball that he saw like 3 seconds earlier and like opening up to hit a chop that's perfectly timing a run that's coming from 25 yards out at an angle to be perfectly weighted, perfectly timed to keep the player in an onside position. It's I could go on and on. His finishing ability, the deftness of his touch, he's one of a kind. He's one of a kind. And thankfully, I'd seen him play for Barcelona at the Camp Nou and drop 2 goals and heard Messi, Messi, ringing around the hollow grounds. And this was what, like maybe 9 years ago. And my wife got to see it. She didn't understand it. And then she's like, oh, got it. I have friends that here in Salt Lake City that literally bought tickets just to go see Messi play. And they flew down to Miami and they watched the game and they saw him drop 2 goals. It's just it's a once in a lifetime experience. The game will in a way never be the same when he's gone. And I just think in the meantime, instead of trying to slag off what the quality of the opponent or the league that he's playing in, I think we should just acknowledge that we only have a certain finite amount of time that he's on the field. And in that amount of time, man, let's wrap him up in bubble wrap and just fucking enjoy what we got right now. Sorry, Tim.
Right, the heroes and villains for the
Mm.
last 7 days in the world of soccer and/or football. Danny, give us a hero.
Give us a hero. Give us a hero. Give us a hero. Who would be my hero? I actually didn't even think about it today.
Oh,
Um,
good. I'm glad you're prepping for the show.
no, because it was I was gonna go in a couple different directions. I was gonna dick around like I always do. Sorry, Tim. But then I chose not to. Um, you're not gonna like this.
Oh no.
My hero is gonna be Erling Haaland.
Ugh.
My hero is gonna be Erling Haaland
Why?
because in a way I don't know how to correctly because you're gonna just eat this up. You're gonna love it. I actually, in a way, love the petulance that he showed coming off the field. I loved the fact that he had dropped 4 and wanted more. I loved that Pep Guardiola was trying to protect him and get him off the field and be like, "What the are you whining about?" Sorry, Tim. Like we can win the league. Like let's make sure you're just healthy and sharp and everything. But in his mind, he wanted another one. He wanted to keep going. Um, so listen, quality of the opponent, League Two player, Roy Keane having a pop in any way, shape, or form that he can. I like that mentality. There's
Mm.
something there that while petulant, the action, I still like the fact that this fucking kid just wants to fucking score goals. Sorry, Tim. Sorry, Tim.
What do you make to as a follow up the whole Roy Keane thing, considering that, Roy Keane did end his dad's career with
That's
a
it.
despicable,
Yeah.
despicable challenge that for me, things like that, he went out deliberately to do a fellow pro. I just feel
Mm.
like, he should be excommunicated from the football community, let alone been he's a funny little sideshow on Sky Sports, no analysis, but all banter, posting from Roy Keane every Sunday. Sorry, Tim. I just feel like back off. Like
Mm.
of all the things, of all the players, and I'm here for the posting. Sorry,
Yeah.
Tim.
Yeah, me too. It,
this is
it
not this is not the
it's
one.
a weird, yeah, it's a weird hill to die on. I mean, but you can tell the history's there. And had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you know, I guess, had he figured out a way to convince the numpties at Manchester United at the time to sign him, had they been able to convince him, after Red Bull Salzburg to, come on over and be a part of Manchester United, I doubt it would have ever happened because of the histrionics between Man City and his dad, and then obviously Roy Keane and his dad. But yeah, I mean, it's low hanging fruit. It's definitely a very easy button for Roy Keane to press.
A hero for me is Ed Sheeran.
Oh, I see.
Not just because he makes women feel things, and that's very handy sometimes, so I don't have to. So Ed Sheeran is born in Suffolk, or he's raised in Suffolk, and he is the sponsor of Ipswich Town Football Club. So if you look at Ipswich Town shirts, they have it's multiply, plus, minus, equals, and something else, which are the names of divide. Is the names of Ed Sheeran's album, so I'm told. But it's a great story about this, which I read not too long ago. So he ended up sponsoring a local girls team in Suffolk called Framlington Town. And he just sort of, it's one of those weird things. They got in touch on social media, I think, and he was like, oh, sure, I'll sponsor you and you can, buy your kit and this sort of stuff. Anyway, that led to, it's long story short stuff, this, but that led to someone saying, why don't you sponsor Ipswich, who were in League One at the time?
Hmm.
And he was like, yeah, okay, let's put some feelers out and do a call. They need a sponsor. And in the end, Ed Sheeran, Ipswich fan, ended up sponsoring Ipswich with the names of his album titles, which is a wild thing to have happened anyway, off the back of him sponsoring the local girls team, Framlington Town. Well, next season, he's going to need to pay more for his sponsorship of Ipswich Town because they've somehow gone from League One into the Premier League. An unexpected story of Kieran McKenna, former Man U coach,
Yeah.
thought was a bit of a boy wonder at some point at Manchester United, took over in League One. The record he's had in 2 seasons is incredible, 2 straight promotions.
Yeah.
It is 56 victories, 26 draws, and 10 defeats. 193 goals scored in those 92 games, 194 points in that time. An incredible back-to-back set of promotions. And their shirt sponsor is all the album titles of Ed Sheeran. Just a wild thing. And there's a great video of Ed Sheeran, who weirdly wasn't at Portman Road for the promotion party at the weekend, but he's got contractual obligations, couldn't be there. He was in Miami and was doing a FaceTime with the players in the dressing room. He's basically like, come out. Yeah, we'll get you all out. Come on, we'll go out to Miami. We'll do a party.
Yeah.
Which I think is
Very
absolutely
Wrexham.
fantastic.
Very
Very
Wrexham, right?
Wrexham.
Yeah.
As Ed Sheeran might put it, it's absolutely perfect. He loves the shape of you, Ipswich Town. Those victories give him shivers, and they've stopped having all those bad habits. You might say, I don't care about this story, but maybe you should. It's a perfect symphony in many ways of football and society. He saw the castle on the hill of the Premier League and decided, I need to give that club their supermarket flowers. Make sure your eyes are not closed when you see fire south of the border. That one didn't work so well. Give me love, Ipswich say. It'll make you happier. It's all of the stars, this kind of afterglow promotion. Don't. No, wait. Do it. It'll be celestial. Life goes on in the end for a team in the Premier League. Lego house. There you go. There you go.
That's a really good bit, by the way. Hey, just a quick side note.
Kiss me.
Our mutual friend Joseph Cummings, who you
Yes.
saw the other day, he actually bought one of Ed Sheeran's first CDs. So before Ed Sheeran blew up, Joe used to go watch him play, and he would be in these rooms of like 10 people. And so he had this connectivity with Ed Sheeran. So he actually sent me a video and a picture of it not too long ago. So next time you see Joe, you should say, dude, I heard you got a great story about Ed Sheeran. He'll love it.
But what if he makes me then do the pun run of Ed Sheeran songs,
I think you'll
name
be fine.
an Ed Sheeran song without the
I think
internet?
you'll enjoy it. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah.
Fine. Give us a villain.
I think I got to go with this whole idea of Everton and 777, right? This is going sideways really, really quick. And with the threat of administration hanging over what this looks like, and whatever the 200 million that's been floated by 777. Why haven't they gotten the seal of approval for this full takeover? I think the flow of information in the public domain seems more likely that this is something that everyone should back off and step away from. But what would this look like, right? In real time, Everton's safe. Sean Dyche has done an incredible job. New stadium right around the corner. Moshiri stepping further and further back into the shadows. But the reality is, if this doesn't go through, it seems as if we're talking about administration. At a bare minimum, I think that's a 9-point deduction that they would have to start with at the beginning of next season, and still have to figure out who's going to pay the bills, who's going to keep the lights on, and what this all looks like. I'm actually surprised there's not more interest in this club. I'm surprised with the stadium that's coming in. There's not more interest in investors. Even with the collective kind of like Clear Lake type of investment, where you're just getting multiple business people and entities all jumping in together. Yeah, it's a bit of a surprise for me, but yeah, I don't want to say 777 are the villains in this conversation. It's more of this situation is the villain with regards to what's happening with Everton.
Yeah, at the moment, that 94% stake is still with Moshiri. The deal is not ratified. The debts are mounting. It's one to watch, certainly, over the next few weeks. For me, I'll keep my villain brief. It's Kai Havertz. And the reason it's Kai Havertz is that I hate what football's done to us, Danny. Because everybody knows he dived for a penalty this weekend. As a matter of fact, not a matter of debate, Kai Havertz saw Mark Travers hold out his right leg, and it could easily have been walked over. But Kai Havertz left his leg down, felt that connection, and jumped to ground. And everybody knows it. You get a friend to watch that who doesn't like football to watch that, and they will say, well, there's not a foul there, is there? Is that a foul? Was that given as a penalty? Is that serious? And yet everyone who watches football thinks it's a penalty. And I hate the fact that that's happened to us, because it's clear evidence-based cheating. It is cheating gold standard. It is a dive. It is unfair. It is cheating. It is not cool. Yeah. And yet I thought it was a penalty from the moment I saw it. Yeah. I thought it was a penalty on every replay. The moment the goalkeeper holds his leg out, the guy's going to go over it. It's weird to me that goalkeepers even try and win the ball in those scenarios. I don't know why they do it. Yeah. But it sucks that it's cheating, and it's just sanctioned. It's just sanctioned, that cheating, and I hate it.
Well, he put the landing gear down, is what I say during broadcasts. And this is where Miola and I had this debate on Counterattack the other day. Because there's a responsibility of the goalkeeper. He's like, well, what else is he supposed to do? Well, the responsibility of the goalkeeper, he chose to cut down his angle. He chose to come off his line. He was late. He did not get to the ball. There is a responsibility on the goalkeeper. And anybody will tell you that in an attacking phase of play, if you can put that doubt into the referee, yes, it's cheating. Yes, it's manipulating. Yes, it's the gray area. Yes, it's the dark arts. Yes, it's Dunsethery. The reality is he drew the contact. And you're right. It's a penalty. Now, is it the type of penalties we want? If you're an Arsenal fan, absolutely. If you're not an Arsenal fan, you're like, come on. That's not really a pen, is it? Like, but, what is it? Minimum interference, maximum, whatever Howard Webb says. As soon as I saw that touch of that leg of Kai Havertz leaving the leg down and hitting the leg of Travers, pen. There was nothing to suggest there's a clear and obvious mistake or that was ever going to be overturned.
Yeah, and I hate it, but there we are. We are where we are now. Thanks, footballers, for being such despicable cheaters for the last 100 years. Anyway.
Wait, you hate it, but you know it's right.
No, I hate it, and I accept that that's where we are.
Okay, got it.
I don't think it's right. Right, that's it for today's program. Couple more left before the summer hiatus for the show. We'll do next week. We'll do one after the final day of the season, and then we've got holidays all round. We'll be back for a new series in July, August time. But for now, that's today's program. That's been Brian Dunny Dunseth. I'm Tom Rennie. Tim Horsey cut all the swearing out of the show, and we'll see you next time.